My name's Dan. This is DD's Speed Shop. So clearly, we're doing quarter panels today. I zipped this one off real quick, and I thought what we're going to do on this video, if you're new here, the last video we just put the driver's side quarter panel on. Looks good, right? So I did less technical how I welded it on and more kind of fitting it and learning and just talking to myself and getting my way through it. This time, I thought instead of doing that, I would show a little more technical stuff to it. This side, that's really nice. It's not really that rotten. I gotta finish the inside welding, but the wheel tub's in good shape. The back here's been cut off, which is no big deal. That weld that on from underneath down the road. Looks solid. I have a spare one off the other car. Up here's all good. Actually, this retractor is not completely boned. That's how that's supposed to work for these stupid cables. They go all the way back. Up at the front, it's really nice. It's actually just metal. I gotta put that back and weld it. The only thing is the latch. It's obviously got some sort of goofy setup, and they just use nuts and bolts. So I'm gonna get this kind of cleaned up a little bit. I'll set the camera inside, and I'll show how we're gonna weld in this wheel tub, and realistically, then we're gonna start fitting the quarter. Should be a good one. Hopefully it's informative. Buyer beware, watcher beware. I'm just winging it here, so don't judge me too hard. Okay, so let's weld in these inner fenders. Now, job one is be as uncomfortable as you possibly can. Now, what I've done in the last video, I've already put the new ones kind of tacked in, and I ran a zip cut along the line so the old material will follow at the back as we kind of push the new stuff in. Now, I've done, it's all tacked, so I'm going to finish weld this whole way in. Right here, I'm going to cut it, but I'm going to end up welding it from the back side because it's hard to get in there with the zip cut all the way, and well, it's just what I did on the other side. And then when I go down the back angle, it's actually behind the tailgate latch post, whatever you want to call it. So let's get welding. Oh, and if it doesn't fit, oh god, you just grab a hammer and you jam it in there and it gets close, or you bash it. Either way works. Okay, so here, this section right here, you probably can't see too well, but the lower section's sticking out past the upper section. So all I'm going to do, grab the hammer handle, give her a little with all your might, while you're holding it, close your eyes. It's held in there. You probably should do this in like sporadic fits and all that to keep the heat out of it, but you know what? This has got a bunch of ribs in it, and ultimately it's the cargo area, and it's already got dents and whatnot in it, so I'm not too worried about the heat going in it. You can't get any more warped, it's already warped. Okay, so I've welded as far as I've cut. So now we're going to go ahead and do more. So you end up running the zip cut just on the line of the metal you're welding in, and you separate the lower section of it. Now the problem is, well, I'm going to be able to go so far, and then I'm going to run into that post. So the disc will only cut to about there. So that last inch and a bit and then the downward slope, we'll do that from the other side. Now one key thing, so I mean, so I can rest my arm in this, it's not too hot. It is what it is. It's got some bows in it and stuff. We'll knock that with a hammer after the fact, but be aware of undercoating. Undercoating burns, and you'll burn a car down. Same with interior, same with gas. Know what you're doing. So now what we've done, we put that slit in it. So instead of just welding it over, like lap welding it, now you can push it back there. So this is unfortunate because the tire welds right over my elbow. Close your eyes. So there we go. I'll weld that section back in. I'll probably cut out what I can get here. We'll cut out the backside, and probably along there. We'll just weld it from the backside where it's a little easier to get to. Okay, so we're in the thick of it. Now, again, when the quarter panel's on, this section's hard to get to. When the quarter's off, it's pretty easy, or when the quarter's on, whoo, little welding dust in my eyes. When the quarter's on, this part's hard to get to. In the wheel tub's easy to get to, so it's irrelevant. And then obviously in front of the tub is hard to get to, but there's no welding to be done there, and you do that from the inside. So that's the original piece of the car that we cut out, and this is the new piece going on. You can see the original Nomad actually didn't have a whole lot of undercoating on it, if any, but the factory panel, or the sedan delivery panel did. So now we got it welded all the way up to there, and I just kind of gave it a cut there. So we're going to have to do a little trimming to figure this out and whack it from the inside to make it all fit. Now this panel here, its problem is it's sandwiched between the wheel tub. So we're just going to go ahead and auger that out real quick. Always wear your safety glasses, unless you can't find them. There we go. That's not even that bad. I could have left it way lower. So now, let's see what we got going on. So we got to cut just a little bit out of the metal and whack it over. But step one, you know what? We'll just give it a whack with a hammer. See what happens. You guys see what I'm doing here? That has got a little bit of pressure on it. So I got the weld right there, so we can finish that little section real quick. Okay, I didn't want to weld real well. I wonder if it's because I didn't clean the metal and there's a bunch of undercoating on it. So now we have our line, and what we're actually going to do is, on this side we were kind of tracing it to the original panel. On this one I'm just going to zip it down, and right here, where's that? Right there is that bulge where it had a little dent. So that's what we'll just end up smacking back, and I bet it'll want to snap back into shape there. Metal likes to go back to the way it was, like pulling out a dent, right? So we'll zip that because we can get in real easy. Weld her up, we're done. Sometimes you just need a bigger hammer. Not too bad. Now I just have a little bit of a gap at the top where the zip cut had to go a little too far. But otherwise, should be able to weld this right into place. bam, check that out. So now, this will need a quick touch with a grinder, and then we'll just seam seal it. Before we do that though, I do have to remove this this cable, I don't know, guide I guess is the word for it. And I'm using a torch on that, and seam sealer is flammable. So be aware of that. Let's see if this dent will come out. Yep, came right out there. Couple of little love kisses with the small one. That's ready for filler. Show you right quick. Come on, that ain't bad. Better than your half ton, right? So there we go, that'll be good enough. At the end of the day, like I said, it's 2 pieces put together anyways by the looks of it. We gotta do something at the front because it's gonna be another 3rd piece put in, and this will all be ground down. Okay, so the inner is done. I did seam seal it and then put on this just some rubberized undercoating just so it has some sort of protection. Now, this is gonna take, well, an hour or so to dry at least, so I'll probably leave it for overnight. I hate welding on new paint and stuff like that, especially when it's kind of flammable, right? You don't want to fire inside the panel you're welding on. So that's where we're going to leave it. I always try and, if you can't get in there, you really should protect it. Either some weld-through primer or whatever it is. I use this stuff. It'll be fine. I mean, it's been since '55. That's all original, and it's rusty, but it's not rusted through, so it's no big deal. Leave that overnight, and then tomorrow we'll be back, and we'll start fitting up the new panel. That should go pretty quick and really make the car look, I mean, it looks bad right now, right? How many guys, and you can admit it in the comments, have seen a car in an ad that looks like this, where the quarter panel's chopped off, or the door's off it, or there's something kind of major to it, and you're like, oh god, I can't tackle that. Tackle it. At the end of the day, if you buy a full panel, it's expensive, but it'll go on so easy. I'll show you that tomorrow. I'm a firm believer in full panels over the half panels, and I'll kind of get into that maybe a little bit more tomorrow. Alright, let this dry. Next day. Paint's all dried, seam sealer's all dried. We're ready to go. So we're going to pull that panel out of that there box. Now, this is more like a full panel installation. If you buy just a skin, you would be cutting. So like a skin would probably go up to here somewhere, like on a muscle car or whatever. You'd have to join it the whole length of the panel, which is absolutely possible. It just is more body work, and you got to really be careful with the heat along the way. What I bought was a full panel. So on this car, you can see up here, well, right there. See, this is double wall. This is going to come off, and we're going to leave that behind. So we're replacing this whole part of the panel and everything. It will wrap around into the door jamb down in this area. So we'll end up plug welding it, because again, this is a few layers. So we still got a layer to take off there. At the back, it does seam. You can see the seam the whole way. And it'll actually have a little lip. So that's what we're going to do. Now on something like Chevelle, Camaro, Cuda, pick your battle. The top of the quarter panel, a lot of time is part of it. It'll then drop into the trunk, and your welding will be done in the trunk. As it will go up like the sail panel, for instance, a lot of times right in the middle of the sail panel will be a lead seam, and you'll be joining it there, and you'll have that body work. And then same thing, it'll wrap around the front, and underneath, obviously, it'll join to typically trunk dropouts in a, you know, a muscle car and your inner rockers. And that's how it's all joined. And so these ones don't. The quarter pound just runs against this rubber lip on a Tri-5. But a lot of other stuff, it will be plug welded around there as well. So, the key is to get it fit. Spend your time fitting it. This isn't a fast process. I mean, you can do it fairly quickly, but you don't want to rush. So, fitment is key. And when you do start welding, you want to be really careful of heat. Too much heat will warp the panel. So those are the two big things. Take your time. Look at this thing unboxed. We'll get it just kind of clamped on there. I'll show you where we're going to start cutting and fitting, and we'll go from there. And we're done. No, we're not done. So this is the panel. Now, when looking at panels, typically this is an American-made panel, but typically the ones that are that black coating come from China. The ones that aren't are, you know, American-made type thing. This is a really nice panel, stick gauge steel. I'm happy with it. Not saying anything. Honestly, if there was a cheaper panel to buy, I would have bought it. But the ones that are painted black is typically for shipping, I guess, over the ocean. Now, the new panel is going to match the old panel in a lot of ways. So obviously this is the lip we're going to have to cut off. You can see these little ribs here. It has them. There's one there. There's one there. So obviously the panel is shot forward, which is pretty clear from the back. The problem we're running into is we have to trim the excess out of the jamb, because that's hanging us up right there. That's touching. That shouldn't. So if we cut it along this little seam, so we'll just leave this 1/2 inch. That's all we're going to use. This will need to be cut off. I guess you could weld it on, fill it, but I'm just going to weld it in. We have to, in there, remove this panel. So I think the next step, what I'm going to do, is we'll take off the old, whatever's left of the old quarter panel. From this section here, in the door jamb, we'll then trim this, the new panel's door jamb. The panel's going to come on and off a bunch of times. It should be coming off a bunch of times. If you're just trying to wing it, you're going to make mistakes. So take your time, come back to it, whatever you got to do. Trust me. This was an investment. This panel here is like $1,200 or $1,300. So it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of real estate on this car. Like this is a nice stamp panel that's going to need minimal body work. All this up here is going to be hidden by trim. We're only going to be body working this section here, down the back, and in the door jamb if you want to get real fancy. So take your time. You don't want to be cutting it and welding it, putting a bunch of heat in it, and getting angry. It's not the plan. Back here, if you can see, the panel curves up and it kind of flattens out. So it gives you more material than you need. It's not going to butt right up here. You got to be aware of that. Some panels will do that, some won't. This one doesn't. So you can almost see right in the top of the curve, somewhere around there, we'll be cutting this. That'll be the last thing we're going to do. I'll probably come in here and take 1 inch or so off, just so it's easier to see everything. But, you know, take multiple cuts or whatever you got to do, be 100% sure. You got to be aware where the panel's going to split away from the trim or from the body line. So I'll show you on the other side. This is the side I've already done, so you can see those line up pretty good. Right here, see how the body line changes. I end up leaving a little gap there, which I will have to fill in with some weld or do something and build this up a little. It's the way I decided to do it. Ultimately, the stamping's a little different here than the car, and that is another part. I guess I should touch on that. The stampings are never as crisp as the proper panel. Like, see how this is, it's more of a rolled edge? That's a hard edge. Down here, rolled, hard. So there is some dolly work you'll be doing to this, but again, like I said, with the panel on, this is literally just, I don't know, 20 tacks on it. Look at how much body work you're not doing. So you're gonna spend money in the panel on these full panels, but you're gonna save it in time. Or if you're paying a body guy, my God. And then in the jamb here, see, that's all we're gonna keep. So I'm gonna modify the other panel to look like this in the front. I'll get the rest of the old panel off, and we'll bring it back, and it'll be fitting a heck of a lot better. Okay, we're on phase 2 of cutting. So I've now cut up to this little lip. I like to keep all the little bits. Some guys will grind, you know, down where they want to be. I like using the zip disc just in case you need this little piece. You always weld it back in. The panel goes just a little bit further. I think it goes right there. I was conservative, so I left a little bit. We can get to that at any point. I haven't ground down anything, obviously, yet. The bumps I was talking about earlier, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I marked them with a felt marker to give it the old front and back. This section right here, I'm not quite done. That's all lead. You can't weld the lead. That's where the original seam would have been. And then we got this piece all trimmed up and matched it to this. So this is what we took out of it. Whatever way that goes. I don't know. Anyway, so that. Now you could have used it. I mean, it does follow the contour a little bit, so it's all about how rotten is your car. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. So I'm gonna get this hung again, and then there's gonna be more trimming, but we'll be in the ballpark now. We're not gonna be running into as many things. The back is really gonna be the holdup, so we're gonna have to get that kind of fit. But the front should go on pretty easy. Okay. This is where things get a little tricky, and you got to take your time. So, with the panel clamped, it's tight there. Obviously here, it's not. Now this panel's meant to probably go up under this sail panel, wherever it is. What I'm going to do is cut it right here, and then we'll weld to that, because that's good metal. So that'll then bring the panel over, right? That's we're locked up against there. There's no way around that. Now if you look up here, it's tight. And down here, it's far back. So the panel has to do this. Step one is getting that. And you can see back here is the reason. We're sitting on top of this sail panel. Now, as I pull it over, it'll line up pretty good. But we're going to have to start taking the material out of here. But this, we can kind of let it do its own thing. It's all cattywampus at the back. And obviously here, it's high as well. This should be in line with that. So the panel is doing that. So we'll get the camera set up. It'll be little relief cuts, whatever you gotta do, get her together. And we'll just start the front and work our way back. That's the way I'm gonna do it. I believe that the door gap has to be straight and good. That's the easiest part to work on. At the back here, the other panel didn't have to do it. I have done it in other cars. You can always cut this section out, put the panel where you want, and then weld it back in. And I mean, it's a little bit of body work for sure, but then you get the taillight fitting perfectly. So you got to pick one side to work on, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to start the front and work my way back. But, I mean, you can see we're in the ballpark. It's pretty close to it. I'm happy enough with it. And, yeah, just keep grinding. Alright. So here are the first cuts. We're going to trim this. I'm going to take this off too, because I'm not going to use it. And we'll see how close we get. So look at that, this is now straightened right out. Oh, gentle, gentle. Load the drink stool. And then at the bottom we're hanging out. But that is right on that line. So the front is pretty good. So now that I'm happy with up here, probably start cleaning the metal front to back, because I think we'll probably start welding it on, and we'll deal with the back with the panel on the car. So I'll get the compressor turned on. I'll show you a little tool for punching holes, because we're going to plug weld this thing. But before I do that, I'm going to get my marker. We're just going to mark where this panel kind of ends, just so we have an idea for how much cutting we're going to be doing. So at this point, the car is prepped for the panel. We've got nice clean metal the whole way up, all around here, and I did the jam as well. So now we have to prep this panel to fit on. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to plug weld it how it was originally with this little tool. Now this is a dual purpose. It's a flanger. You put a flange in a piece of steel if you want to lap weld it. And has a punch on it. So we're going to use the punch. Kind of put it on there. Wiggle on as far as it'll go. And leaves a perfect little hole. So I'm going to punch this the whole way, every 6 inches or so. And then we'll also do around here, which is the leading edge of the door jamb. The bottom of the panel we're not going to do because, you can see or not, I've already punched holes in the inner rocker. So we're going to weld from the rocker to the panels. We want all the metal there. And that's about it. The back section here, we're going to weld it the whole way across the top. So that's irrelevant. Really just right there. So we'll get it all punched, and we'll get it clamped back on, and we'll start affixing this thing. Okay, so we got the panel clamped on. Our gaps are pretty good. Now, obviously it's sticking out, but we got a nice gap in there. A little bit of work up here, but that's the car being butchered. We'll have to do something about that. So we're all fine here. We're all right level. And right about here, we start running uphill. Now the reason we're running uphill is obviously we're sitting on top. Now, it might look like the panel is too short, but look at this. You can just kind of, this is so flexible right now, you make it work. Now what we're going to do, or I'm going to do, I'm going to put just a little cut in here, a little zip cut, and I'll be able to see where the fender wants to be. It's probably going to be right around where this, you can see where the light is. That's obviously the crown of the panel. And it lines up right there. So when I see the line I want there, I'll put a little zip in there. I'll see where the metal is. I'll run a tape line, front to back. I'll then zip that off. And then we should be right where we want to be. And we'll test fit our light in there, obviously. There might be a better way of doing that. Honestly, I don't know. There's nothing to measure off of a lot of times on quarter panels because they're so, all over the place. On the panels that wrap right in the trunk and all that, it makes life a little easier. When you have you got to pick a line. And that's the line I'm going to pick. And we're going to make it work. Now, this, we're in the ballpark. That's supposed to be up there a little bit, but close to. It looks right. The wheel tub is in the right spot, front and back. The wheel is pretty much centered. It looks like just crap with a little 14-inch wheel on it. We just got to drop it down that ½ an inch or so. So once we get that cut out, it'll fall down. We'll clamp it. May need a little bit more cleanup in there with the zip disc, and then we should be able to start tack welding. Okay. So it looks to be right there. To there. Oh no. Hang on. What are we doing here with the light? Alright, well, let's see if we're a hero or a zero. Pretty good. Let's hang it down, but there we go. So I'll probably put just a couple of tack bolts to hold it. We gotta do some trimming in the back. We're good. So here's the fun part. You got all that screwing around and you didn't mess it up. I put 2 welds just to hold it because you can't really get a clamp there, obviously. The edge is pretty darn close. This is the underside, but we'll zip that up. We're good there. We gotta fix my little inspection cuts. Obviously in here it's, you know, I guess maybe I probably should have cut it there. But what are you gonna do? I'll build that little piece in, no big deal. Everything else is clamped. Our door gap, so it's a little thick at the top and a little skinny at the bottom. Now, the quarter panel's on straight. So, it's the door that's a problem. And I'll show you, it's the door that's a problem. So, if we have a big gap there, little gap there, it means the door is hiked up. Well, if you look at here, it's rubbing there, and we got a gap down there. So if we drop the back of the door down, it'll close up that gap, open up that gap. Perfect. Now, the last thing we got to do is the bottom. Now, this, I have not trimmed that tape line off yet. So bear in mind. That's why it's like that. So, what we will need is this taillight housing. Now, we put it in there. The top basically lines up. The bottom, no bueno. Now we know this side is good, so what we're gonna do, we'll line it up on that one side, and that's how much metal. See how it's nice up top? It's fat at the bottom. So that's the plan. What I'll probably do is pull this out, push this one in. I got 2 hands, but I'll lap this panel over that panel. Maybe give it a tackle to hold it. Fit the light in. Once I'm happy with it, tape the line top to bottom along this line, and it'll all fit. So I'll set the camera, we'll get that done, and then we'll just, where the vice grips are, we'll put a few plug welds in. We'll get in the door jamb, put a few welds in there. The bottom is going to be floppy, front and back, so we haven't got it welded to the floor or to its little brace there. So the quarter panel will have a little bit of a kick out, but you know what, that's real easy. You just put your knee up against it until you're happy with the flare and weld it. This was the tricky part. We did good. It was good. Good job, guys. So thanks for staying along. So we're at the back here. Now, this panel, for whatever reason, the cut isn't straight up and down. It's got a bit of a wow in it. So, kind of eliminates the tape a little bit. This is not going to fit the greatest. Now, when I have my taillight in, and I match it up to this side, the top's good, the back's maybe a ½ inch. This piece here I cut out of the old panel, and it just barely touches, so it only has a little bit to go. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but we're touching at the bottom, we're touching at the top, and we got a big gap in the center. Now this does have to fold in just a hair, so I think I'm just going to kind of freestyle it here and put a tape line where I think it should be, which is probably about 3/4 inch. And I'll probably do it at the top and the bottom, try and push it in there and then cut it, so the cut will be straight, but the piece we're taking off won't be. So, eyeballing. Well, I was playing tricks on me, but it's in there. It has got a whammo that's coming this way, so it's kind of pushed that panel back. I'll have to smack that in, but from the top, well, looks pretty good. Just a little bit hammer and dolly work. It's in there. It's got a sharp peak, obviously, once we get it welded. so that's where that's going to be. We'll get set up. I'm just going to put a few welds along here. I'm going to plug in here, just, you know, some of them, not all of them. Up here still need kind of be cleaned up with a zip disc. And then all that's left is in, I put one tack weld in. This might need to be trimmed down just a little, and we'll have to hammer it in. So, we'll get the camera set up, we'll get that, then we'll do that, then we're done. Okay, off of these plug welds. I like to have a little bit of heat to welder for this. You got to go through one metal into another. So with a bunch of heat in it, in theory I should be able to take this off. It didn't move. So we'll just do a couple of those to hold it. Okay, so that's in. Turn the old girl down a little bit. Now, we're welding this. It's actually pretty nice. Right here we have just a bit of a high spot. Actually, you know what? Kind of flexing it. Give it a push down. That doesn't sound great. Maybe it wants a little bit of heat. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Let's move into the jam. Just gotta grab another hammer here. Okay, so this needs to be trimmed just a little bit. So I'll grab the grinder and we'll zip off just 1/8 the whole way around. I'll make it fit a lot better. Okay, so I took probably a zip disc and then another that amount off. And we're going to use this hammer. So we want to just roll this stamp because the stamp's a little crappy. So we'll probably get started with this here, if I can. Okay, so we got it about level. Now I'm just going to use the pick end of this to get the last little bit in there just against the two, like a little step that it has. Okay, it's in place. Now this, I'm just going to give it a few tack welds because I'm probably have to come back over it and make it a little nicer, but you know what the problem is? I want to be standing wherever you guys are. Hopefully that's better. There we have it. Gently installed. I didn't do anything down here. I do have to match these two panels, it's just overlapping, so I gave it one tack weld, but I didn't go all the way down because that's going to move and obviously make it tight on the door. But quarter panel installed. Same we go around here, clamp them all, give them a good weld, fill in there, all that. But here's real nice. Shouldn't need much filler up in there. Build a little piece there because I miscut by an inch. So there you go. I was trying to take my time and show people how to do it as right as possible. I did it wrong. But it all turned out. I'll probably put a few more welds on it just to hold it. But again, this car is so pieced together. I want to make sure everything can come off or move or whatever has to happen. But amateur butchery, putting on quarter panels. Take it or leave it. Don't judge me too bad in the comments. If there's something I missed, let me know. Maybe I'll know on the next Nomad quarter panel I change in my life. But for now, that's it. That's it for this video. Up next, if you're following along on the series of this 55 Nomad build, I think we're going to start working on the inside. We got wheel tubs to do, a few little toe board patches, get everything kind of fitting, then a lot more welding, because all this whole car is just tack welded together. And then, probably time for a body swap, because we got a nice rebuilt chassis for it. No matter how much you do, it always feels like there's more to do. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.